Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, our third session looking at The Golden Age by Thomas Heywood. We are 2/3 of the way through the text. We're going to complete the text today, and then take stock before taking a little break before we dive into the next one in the sequence. There are many ages plays, and it is going to be an ongoing project over the next month or two to actually polish them off, and we'll continue dancing between other texts as well, so that we don't get bored, and also, for that matter, traumatized, because just a general trigger warning note that yes, this features Jupiter, who does tend towards scenes of sexual violence, or at least hints and discussions thereof. He's already had a history of that in the previous session, and the way the play is moving at the moment, it looks like we're setting up for something similar, but probably slightly different in this session. So you have been warned, on top of the usual disclaimer of it's the early modern period, things are problematic. To read through this final session and get to grips with what this play is trying to do, reading today Acrisius and Neptune is...
Hello, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor-producer based in Germany at the moment.
Reading Jupiter is...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading The Clown and Troos is...
Hello, I'm Valentina. I am an Italian actor and voiceover artist in London.
Reading Homer and Saturn is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Danae and an Argos Lord is...
Hi, I'm American. I guess that technically makes Tamara my dad.
Yeah, I think that might be fine. Melliseus today is being read by...
Oh, hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor based in Montpellier, France.
And then we have a selection of Beldams. Beldam number 1 and Archas is...
Hello, my name is Lynn. I am a teacher during the school year, and I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Beldam number 2 and Ganymede today is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator living in northwestern England.
Reading Beldam number 3 today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian. I'm in Hull.
And reading Beldam number 4 and Pluto today is...
Rachael Nicole, actor on the East Coast. Looking forward to playing my favorite Sailor Scout today.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and filling in if necessary. So, without further ado, we're diving into Act 4, Scene 2. In the previous scene, we had set up a situation with Danae and Jupiter, in his mind at least, going to the rescue. Act 4, Scene 2, enter 4 old Beldams with other women. We don't know precisely how many people are on stage. And just a note for anyone reading the Beldams, they should always be in prose. Occasionally it thinks it's in verse, but it's not. It's really not. So, in prose all the way. Beldams, take it away.
Here's a coil to keep fire and tow asunder. I wonder the king should shut his daughter up so close. For anything I can see, she hath no mind to a man.
Content yourself, you speak according to your age and appetite. We that are full-fed may praise fast. We that in our heat of youth have drunk our bellyfuls may deride those that in the heat of their bodies are athirst. I measure her by what I was, not by what I am. Appetite to love never fails an old woman till the cracking of nuts leaves her. When Danae hath no more teeth in her head than you and I'll trust a man in her company, and scarce then, for if we examine ourselves, we have, even at these years, qualms and rheums, and devices can come over our stomachs when we look on a proper man.
That's no question. I know it by myself, and whilst I stand sentinel, I'll watch her for that, I warrant her.
Have we not reason, considering the penalty?
If any stand sentinel in her quarters, we shall keep quarter here no longer. If the princess miscarry, we shall make gunpowder. And they say an old woman is better for that than saltpeter.
The alarum bell rings.
The alarm bell rings. It should be King Acrisius by the sound of the clapper.
Then clap close to the gate and let him in.
Enter Acrisius.
Ladies, well done. I like this providence and careful watch, Danae. Let me find you faithless, you die. Be faithful and you live, eternized in our love. Go call her hither, be that your charge.
Exit a Beldam.
The rest keep watchful eye on your portcullised entrance, which forbids all men save us free passage to this place.
Enter Danae and Beldam.
See, Danae is descended. Fair daughter, how do you brook this palace?
Like a prison. What is it else? You give me golden fetters as if their value could my bondage lessen.
The architecture sumptuous and the building of cost invaluable. So rich a structure for beauty or for state the world affords not. Is not thy attendance princely, like a queen's? Are not all these thy vassals to attend? Are not thy chambers fair and richly hung? The walks within this barricaded mule, full of delight and pleasure. For thy taste and curious palate, all the chiefest cates are from the furthest verges of the earth fetched to content thee. What distastes thee then?
That which alone is better than all these, my liberty. Why am I cloistered thus and kept a prisoner from the sight of man? What hath my innocence and infancy deserved to be immured in brazen walls? Can you accuse my faith and modesty? Hath any loose demeanor in my carriage bred this distrust? Hath my eye played the rioter, or hath my tongue been lavish? Have my favors unvirgin-like to any being profuse, that it should breed in you such jealousy or bring me to this durance?
None of these. I love my Danae, but when I record the oracle, it breeds such fear in me that makes this thy retainment.
The oracle, wherein unto the least of all the gods hath Danae been unthankful or profane, to bondage me that am princess free and votress to every deity?
I tell thee, lady, the unchanging mouth of Phoebus hath this oracle pronounced that Danae shall in time child such a son that shall Acrisius change into a stone.
See, your vain fears. What less could Phoebus, or what hath Danae's fate deserved in this? To turn you into stone. That's to prepare your monument in marble's sepulchre. The meaning is that I, a son, shall have, that when you die, shall bear you to your grave. Are you not mortal? Would you ever live? Your father died, and to his monument you, like a mourner, did attend his hearse. What you did to your father, let my son perform to you. Prepare your sepulchre. Or shall a stranger bear you to your tomb, when from your own blood you may store a prince to do those sacred rites? Or shall vain fears cloister my beauty and consume my years?
Our fears are certain, and our doom is fixed as the decrees of gods. Thy durance here is with limit endless.
And exit Danae.
Go, attend her unto her chamber, there to live an anchoress, and changeless virgin to the period of her last hour.
Exit non-specified woman.
And you, to whom this charge solely belongs, banish all womanish pity. Be deaf unto her prayers, blind to her tears, obdure to her relenting passions. Should she, as heaven and the oracle forbid, by your corrupting lose that precious gem we have such care to keep and lock safe up, your lives are doomed. Be faithful, we desire, and keep your bodies from the threatened fire.
And Acrisius exits.
Heaven be as chary of your highness' life as we of Danae's honor. Now, if she be a right woman, she will have a mind only to lose that which her father has such care to keep. There is a thing that commonly sticks under a woman's stomach.
What do we talking of things? There must be no meddling with things in this place. Come, let us set our watch and take our lodgings before the prince's chamber.
And they exit. So we've set the scene for this particular locality. We've met some people. We've heard firsthand the situation from differing viewpoints. How are we feeling about what's going on here? And where we are with Danae and her father, who's saying, your tower, it's lovely. We've kitted everything out. You've got Wi-Fi. It's a lovely, lovely place. Helen.
Yeah, it's another of these man proposes, God disposes. I mean, Saturn had the oracle that his son would depose him, and he did all sorts of things to everything all these Greeks do to avoid whatever the oracle has decided always lands them in the deepest doo-doo possible.
Right.
Mm.
I mean, it's just sort of it happens in any kind of a genre. Evidently people in horror movies have never seen a horror movie. It's like, don't go in that house. And people in myths have never heard a myth. They don't know that when the oracle says this is going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, what do you do when you haven't got myths to base your life on? Because, they are the template. These are the lessons we should learn from. Because, this happens to us all the time. Aliki.
Sorry, I can't resist. Danae got pinged, and her dad's like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to self-isolate. Look, they'll be catering.
Yeah, we've got this test and trace for God Oracle problem issues, and there's a lot of it about in this area at the moment. Gods are pinging a lot of people. Eric.
Very much that thing, sort of. Well, we saw it in Tancreding this one and some other stuff where it's like, sort of. The father thinks that he has control over his daughter pretty much in every single play. But of course, also we had it in Marston's, not one. What you will, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the motivations of the father, are they purely? I mean, obviously they're controlling, but they're not motivated in the same way as they are in Tancred. I don't think. I'm not getting the impression that Acrisius is sniffing the bedclothes or anything. It seems to be controlling, but there is a logic to why he's doing it. How are we feeling about the Beldams? How are they coming across? They seem to have some life to them. Thoughts on the room? Alan?
Well, from the speech, it seemed to come across that Beldam too wouldn't have been too unhappy if her toy boy had turned up.
Right?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the older women have desires too vibe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also quite just like the line of by the sound of the clapper we can tell it's the king arriving. So different bell. Is it which bell, what tune, the frequency, and as just the setup of yes. Well, then open the door. Which is the following line after that, which I quite liked. Anyway, we will carry on after Eric.
You kind of get the impression that obviously this Danae has been locked in here sort of for a while, and it's very much that teenage thing of Dad, I'm bored. Having access to all the internet and all that stuff, but you have a Netflix subscription. You can watch everything now. You can Skype your friends. You can Zoom, whatever. And it's like, I'm bored. Let me.
Well, it's also the threat feels nebulous. Clearly, I mean, he's taking it seriously, but is anyone else taking it seriously? And when you're just being locked away and given a free pass on the it can be difficult. Anyway, Act 4, Scene 3. Hold on to any thoughts because we're still in the room for this location. Let's see how it goes. It's never a good sign. Enter Jupiter, like a peddler. The clown, his man with packs at their backs.
Sirrah, now I have sworn you to secrecy, attend your
Charge
charge.
me to the mouth. Until you give fire, I'll not off.
Thou knowest I've stuffed my pack with rich jewels to purchase one jewel worth all these.
Well, if your precious stones were set in that jewel, it would be brave wearing.
If we get entrance, soothe me up in all things, and if I have recourse to the princess, if at any time thou seest me whisper to her, find some trick or other to blind the beldam's eyes.
She that hath the best eyes of them all, I have a trick to make her nose stand in a light.
No more King Jupiter, but Goodman Peddler. Remember that.
I have my memorandums about me. As I can bear a pack, so I can bear a brain. And now I talk of a pack, though I know not of the death of any of your friends, I am sorry for your heaviness.
Love and my hopes do make my load seem light. This wealth I will unburden in the purchase of yon rich beauty. Prithee, ring the bell.
Nay, do you take the rope in hand for luck's sake. The moral is, because you shall ring all in.
I care not if I take thy counsel.
He rings the bell. Bingy bong. Enter the 4 beldams.
To the gate, and know who 'tis ere you open.
I learned that in my youth, still to know who knocked before I would open. Huh?
Save you, gentle matrons. May a man be so bold as to ask what he may call this rich and stately tower?
Thou seemest a stranger to ask such a question. For where is not the Tower of Darien known?
It may be called the Tower of Baron, for aught I see, for here are none but our past children.
This is the rich and famous Taran Tower, where King Acrisius hath enclosed his daughter, the beauteous Diane, famous through the world for all perfections.
Well then, 'tis here I must unload. Coming through Crete, the great King Jupiter entreated me to call here at this tower and to deliver you some special jewels of high prized worth, for he would have had his bounty renowned throughout all the earth. Down with your pack, for here we must unload.
Jewels? To us?
And from Jupiter.
Now, gold, prove thy true virtue, that canst all things, and therefore this.
Was he with presents? And shall he unpack at the gate? Nay, come into the porter's lodge, good peddlers.
That lady hath some manners. She hath been well brought up, I warrant her.
And I can tell thee, peddler, thou hast that courtesy never any man yet found but the king Acrisius.
Shall be paid well for your courtesy. Here's first for you, for you, for you.
Rare.
Admirable.
The best that e'er I saw.
I'll run and show mine to my lady.
Shut the gate for fear the king come, and if he ring, clap the peddlers into some of yon rotten corners. And hath King Jupiter been at all this cost? He's a courteous prince and a bountiful. Keep you the peddler company, my lady shall see mine too.
Mean you the Princess Danae? I've tokens from Jupiter to her too.
Run you that have the best legs to tell my lady. But have you any more of the same?
Have we? Oh, quoth. We have things about us we have not showed yet, and that every one must not see would make those few teeth in your head water. I would have you think I have wear too, as well as my master.
Enter in state, Danae, with the beldams, looking upon their several jewels.
Yonder's my lady. Nay, never be abashed, peddler. There's a face will become thy jewels, as well as any face in Crete or Argos either. Now, your token?
I've lost it. 'Tis my heart. Beauty of angels, thou art o'ermatched. Earth may contend with heaven. Nature thou hast to make one complete creature, cheated even all mortality. This face hath robbed the morning of her blush, the lily of her blanched whiteness. and like theft committed upon my soul, she is all admiration. But in her eyes I ne'er saw perfect lustre. There is no treasure upon earth but yonder. She is. Oh, I shall lose myself.
Nay, sir, take heed you be not smelt out.
I am myself again.
Did he bestow these freely? Danae's guard are much indebted to King Jupiter. If he have store, we'll buy some for our use and wearing. They are wondrous beautiful. Where's the man that brought them?
Here, forsooth, lady, hold up your head and blush not. My lady will not hurt thee, I warrant thee.
This jewel, madam, did King Jupiter command me to leave here for Danae. Are you so styled?
If sent to Danae, 'tis due to me, and would the king of Crete knew with what gratitude we take his gift.
Madam, he shall. Sirrah, ope your pack, and what the ladies like, let them take freely.
Much have I heard of his renown in arms, his generousness, his virtues, and his fullness of all that nature can bequeath to man. His bounty I now taste, and I could wish your ear were his, that I might let him know what interest he hath in me to command.
His ear is mine. Let me command you then. Behold, I am the Cretan Jupiter, that rate your beauty above all these gems. What cannot love? What dares not love attempt? Despite Acrisius and his armed guards, hither my love hath brought me to receive or life or death from you, only from you.
We are amazed, and the large difference betwixt your name and habit breeds in us fear and distrust. But if I censure freely, I needs must think that face and patronage were ne'er derived from baseness, and the spirit to venture into dared court queen I cannot style less than to be a king's. Say that we grant you to be Jupiter, what thence infer you?
To love Jupiter?
So far as Jupiter loves Danae's owner, so far will Danae love Jupiter.
We wait well on my lady?
Madam, you have not seen a clearer stone for colour or for quickness. Sweet, your ear.
Beware your ruin if you Beldams here.
Sirrah, show all your wares, and let those ladies best please themselves.
Not all of these years I spy his knavery. Now, would he have me keep them busied whilst he courts the lady?
Doth my lady want nothing?
And she looks back as in a moment distraction tactics are going on with the clown, which we'll pick up the scene from. So yeah, this is a different story from what we've got. Jupiter and clown as double act, which we've not seen before. Clown has popped in and done some things. There's you get the sensation again. Once again, the clown is really working hard with some of these jokes. You can really feel those cogs turning. Yeah, they've got a plan to get into the place, and there seems to be more, shall we say, of your actual wooage going on here, as well as other things, problematized by what we know of Jupiter from earlier. So it's, so far, as a scene in its own right, so far it's been quite fun. But we remember what happened in the first half of the play. So yeah, thoughts from the room about the scene so far, Briony?
Jupiter's like the slimy used car salesman of getting into women's pants, isn't he? He knows exactly what angle to play every time, and the crap that comes out of his mouth is so romantic and believable, and don't they all just fall for it?
He does reveal who he is relatively swiftly, to his relative credit here. He uses his lie to get access, and then he actually just says, I'm Jupiter. Hi. Have you heard of me? I do many things in Crete. Helen.
I think that we've got a massive prop opportunity. Every single bit of the jewellery box is going to have to be put to use, because there are 4 of them, and they need to become so loaded with chains and tiaras and other bracelets and other things that they're going to be positively dripping with them.
Yeah, there's the distraction needs to be real.
Yeah. And they are sort of half looking back and half not looking back, but the lure of the sparkly stuff is enormous.
And they know exactly what they're doing here, because, you know, it's that thing, shut the gate, don't let the king see, because we'll just do this thing over here. And if the king turns up, quickly hide them. Hide the peddlers. So,
Yes.
you know.
I mean, I don't think they've any suspicion at all that it's the lady's virtue that he's after. It's just that they've put this outside of their sworn duty. This is a special event.
We're doing our job, aren't we? Towards the end.
Yeah.
Anything?
There's that moment when Beldam 2's, you know, we wait well on my lady, almost feels like a pointed cough moment of just, maybe they're talking aside too much, and then it's just, quickly, more jewels, throw more jewels. Eric.
I was going to say that at the beginning it reminded me a bit of like Ralph Royster Doyster, where you've got like the silly servants kind of thing going on, sort of, although they're not silly in this sense, but like they're sort of tuned into what's going on, but they don't seem to sort of, they seem to ignore it, like, you know, sort of the household of her name, Custance, good Christian Custance and all that stuff. It just feels a bit sort of like that. But there's a part of me going, who's the clown? Jupiter or just the clown?
Yes, you've got a situational sort of comedy set up here of, you know, the Beldams there, but also Jupiter and clown doing the double act. So you've got various things in play in the scene. Other thoughts before we complete the scene, because we're only halfway through it. No. Okay, let us continue then. So the clown has been ordered by Jupiter to run distractions. So clown, distract away, please.
For example, here's a silver bodkin. This is to remove dandruff and dig about the roots of your silver-haired fur. This is a toothpick, but you having no teeth, here is for you a coral to rub your gums. This is called a mask.
Gramercy for this. This is good to hide my wrinkles. I never saw these before.
Then you have one wrinkle more behind. You that are dim-eyed, put this pitiful spectacle on your nose.
As I am son of Saturn, you have wrong to be cooped up within a prison strong. Your father, like a miser, cloisters you, but to save cost, he's loath to pay your dower, and therefore keeps you in this brazen tower. What, are you better to be beautiful, when no man's eye can come to censure it? What a sweet taste, untasted, gorgeous clothes unworn, or beauty not beheld. Yon beldams, with all the furrows in their wrinkled fronts, may claim with you the like worth. Aye, and compare, for I to censure you, none can, none dare.
All this is true.
Or think you I would lie with any save Danae? Let me buy this jewel, your bright love, though rated higher than gods can give, or men in prayers desire.
You covet that which, save the Prince of Crete, none dare.
That shows how much I love you, sweet. I come this beauty, this rare face to save, and to redeem it from this brazen grave. Oh, do not from man's eye this beauty screen, these rare perfections which no earthly queen enjoys save you. 'Twas made to be admired. The gods, the fates, and all things have conspired with Jupiter this present to invade, and bring it forth to that for which 'twas made. Love Jupiter, whose love with yours shall meet, and having borne you hence, make at your feet kings lay their crowns, and mighty emperors kneel. Oh, had you but a touch of what I feel, you would both love and pity.
Both I do, but all things hinder yet. Were Danae free, she would affect the Cretan.
Now by thee, for what I most affect, by that I swear, I from this prison will bright Danae bear, and in that thy chamber will this night fast seal this covenant made.
Which Danae must repeal.
You shall not by this kiss.
'Tis good to have an eye.
She looks back.
Your nose hath not had these spectacles on yet.
Oh, Jupiter,
Danae,
I must hence, for if I stay I yield. I'll hence no more.
expect me, for I come.
Yon is my door. Dare not to enter there, I will to rest. Attendants,
Come I will.
you had not best.
And exit Danae.
My lady calls. We have trifled the night till bedtime. Some attend the princess. Others see the peddlers packed out of the gate.
Will you trust us out to seek our lodgings at midnight? We have paid for our lodging. A man would think we might have lain cheaper in any inn in Argos.
This castle stands remote, no lodging near. Spare us but any corner here below. But the inner porch, or the least staircase, and we'll be gone as early as you please.
Consider all things. We have no reason to deny that. Well, what need we fear? Alas, they are but peddlers, and the greatest prince that breathes would be advised ere he durst presume to court the Princess Danae.
He court the princess, he looks not with the face. Well, peddlers, for this night take a nap upon some bench or other, and in the morning be ready to take thy yard in hand to measure me some stuff. And so be gone before day. Well, good night. We must attend the princess.
And exeunt the Beldams.
Golden reward, thou art mighty and hast power, are aged, young, the foolish and the wise, the chaste and wanton, foul and beautiful. Thou art a god on earth and canst all things.
Not all things, by your leave. All the gold in Crete cannot get one of yon old crowns with child. But shall we go to sleep?
Sleep thou, for I must wake for Danae. Hence, cloud of baseness, thou hast done enough.
He puts off his disguise.
To blare yon Beldams, when I next appear to you, bright goddess, I will shine in gold, decked in the high imperial robes of Crete, and on my head the wreath of majesty, for ornament is a prevailing thing, and you, bright queen, are now court like a king.
And exeunt. So, yes, we catch the latter end of the wooing there. We catch more distraction. Clown doing the best shopping channel vibe there to keep the distraction going. Thoughts on the room, Briony?
So did he only reveal who he really was to her rather than to all the Beldams? Because they keep referring to him as a peddler. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, so every time that they get close to doing anything, or the clown has noticeably to stop them from looking around. So your nose have not had these spectacles on yet. I'm wondering, are they ridiculously bleary kind of spectacles? So it's like so that there's no chance they could sit. And you've got the clown's got to wrestle effectively with 4 people's attention. I mean, that's quite a lot of business to be ticking over. So there's a huge amount of question about how that times, because it's behind you, but in sort of in reverse kind of action here. Especially intimated that there's a kiss at that vital moment of the spectacles. So there's a lot of timing to get right here. Helen.
Jupiter lies to her. He lies. He says on his word, "As I am son of Saturn." He says, "Your father, like a miser, cloisters you, but to save cost, he's loath to pay your dower. Now that's a straight lie.
Who would have thought that Jupiter would tell a lie?
Yeah. I mean, he is wooing. Of course, the fact that he's just got married and he's got at least one other bastard living.
Yeah,
But he's not. He can't help it, can he? Truth is far from him.
Rachael.
I put this in the chat before, but just that people who are abusers are like who, you know, I guess how he's shown up very friendly and you know, all this gift giving is kind of love bombing, and that abusers are kind of they're like frequently get called charming, like described as charming by people who they later abuse, and I feel like he's fitting into a certain sort of pattern of this you know, worming his way into people's trust just to break it.
Other thoughts?
There is a piece of tremendous vulgarity that we have missed.
I think there were several pieces of
Oh,
tremendous
all right,
vulgarity
fair
that we
enough.
missed. But by all means, highlight any examples.
No, it's just getting your stones into that jewel. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not so much a question of double entendre, it's more single entendre in an awful lot of this. I mean, he's obviously been familiar with the stuff that was going on with Marston and others and the Boys' Company plays of how many dirty jokes can we spread into any one speech.
Yeah. Any other examples anyone wants to throw into the hat at this stage that they've picked up on? Okay. Oh, Eric.
Just the whole what's it called? I must hence, for if I stay, you'll hence no more, and then expect me, for I come. And then yon is my door, dare not to enter there. Of course you won't go over there. I will to rest. And then I'm trying to work out if the whole "you had not best" line is basically her pretending that she's not interested in front of the others.
Yes, there seems to be a performance going on here, and from Danae and Jupiter here. So yes. Oh, Alan.
Yeah, we've had this trope before of "don't you dare approach my door." That one.
Yes, don't approach my. There isn't an open balcony which a rope ladder can be easily attached to by any means at all between the hours of 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. That is not an option. Okay, let's go into Act 4, Scene 4. Enter the 4 old beldams, drawing out Danae's bed, she in it. They place 4 tapers at the 4 corners.
Command our eunuchs with their pleasingest tunes to charm our eyes to rest. Leave us, oh, leave us. The god of dreams hath with his downy fan swept o'er our eyelids and sits heavy on them.
Hey-ho, sleep may enter at my mouth if he be no bigger than a 2-penny loaf.
Then to your chambers, and let the wakeless slumbers charm you in depth of silence and repose.
Good night to thee.
Let music through this brazen fortress sound, till all our hearts in depth of sleep be drowned.
Exuent beldams, enter Jupiter crowned with his imperial robes.
Silence that now hath empire through the world, express thy power and princedom. Charming sleep, death's younger brother, show thyself as stilless as death himself. None seem this night to live, save Jove and Danae. But that goddess one, give them new life, breathed with the morning sun. Yon is that door, that in forbidding me, she bade me enter. Women's tongues and hearts have different tunes, for where they most desire, their hearts cry on, when their tongues bid retire. All's wished, I hear the snorting beldams breathe, soundness of sleep, none wakes save love and we. Yon bright imprisoned beauty to set free, O thou, more beauteous in thy nakedness than ornament can add to. How sweetly does she breathe, how well becomes imaginary deadness. But I'll wake her into new life. This purchase I must win, heaven's gates stand open, and Jupiter will in. Can I?
He lies upon her bed.
Who's that?
'Tis I, King Jupiter.
What mean you, Prince? How dare you enter here, knowing but if I call, your life is doomed, and all Crete's treasure cannot guard your person.
You tell me now how much I rate your beauty, which to attain I cast my life behind me, as loved much less than you.
I love you too, would you but leave me?
Repentance I'd not buy at that high rate, 10,000 times to die. You are mine own, so all the fates have said, and by their guidance come I to your bed. The night, the time, the place, and all conspire to make me happy in my long desire. Acrisius' eyes are charmed in golden sleep. Those beldams that were placed your bed to keep, all drowned in Lethe, save your downy bed. White sheets and pillow where you rest your head, none hears or sees, and what they can devise, when they, heaven knows, have neither ears nor eyes.
Beshrew you, sir, that for your amorous pleasure could thus sort all things person, place, and leisure. Exclaim I could, and a loud uproar keep, but say you that the crones are all asleep. To what purpose should I raise such fear, my voice being soft, they fast and cannot hear?
They are deaf in rest then, gentle sweet. I further, if you should call, I thus your voice would murder, and strangle with my kisses.
Kisses? Hush, I'll sink into my sheets, for I shall blush. I'll dive into my bed.
And I behind? No, wert the ocean such a gem to find, I would dive after.
Jupiter puts out the lights and makes unready.
Good my lord, forbear. What do you mean? Heaven is no man near. If you will needs for modesty's sweet law, before you come to bed, the curtains draw. But do not come, you shall not buy this light. If you but offer it, I shall cry outright. Oh God, how hoarse am I, and cannot fly. Danae thus naked, and a man so nigh. Pray, leave me, sir. He makes unready still. Well, I'll even wink, then do what you will.
The bed is drawn in, and enter the clown new waked.
Oh, I would I were out of this tower of brass, and from all these brazen-faced beldams. If we should fall asleep, and the king come and take us napping, where were we? My lord stays long, and the night grows short. The thing you wot of has cost him a simple sort of jewels, but if, after all, the thing you wot of would not do, if the peddler should show himself a piddler, he hath brought his hogs to a fair market. Fie upon it, what snorting forward and backwards these beldams keep. But let them sleep, some in the house, I am sure, are awake and stirring too, or I miss my aim. Well, here I must sit, and wait the good hour till the gate be open, and suffer my eyes to do that which I am sure my cloak never will, that is, to take a nap.
And exit clown. We'll pause there. Yes, with the snoring of the beldams off stage, there seems to be an intimation of sounds going on there. Yes, this is a tricky scene. Because in theory it's all consensual, but it's couched in language that is really, really dodgy. And really creepy. And yeah, how does one pass that? All sorts of issues here. Who wants to leap onto that one? I'll start with Aliki, then Rachael, then Briony.
Okay, the language is very different from the language we had in the earlier part of the play with Callisto, who very clearly, strongly resisting. Whereas here we have the nasty old trope of, oh, do it again. I might say no, 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 but do it again, which is actually kind of almost creepier for a modern audience.
Yeah, there's nothing like Jupiter coming in and saying how well becomes imaginary deadness. I mean, Rachael then, Briony.
I mean, this is so much more coercive than the last time, which I think it's what do you call it? That I think these are both rape scenes, but they're two different types of rape scenes. You know what I'm saying? They're giving us two different portraits of the same act, and that it doesn't always look like what people think something like that would look like, because the first scene is so much more straightforward, and then this one it seems less. It seems like there's more ambiguity, and that people could criticize her more or debate it more, especially now that he's I think he has more power than he did when he assaulted Callisto too, so it could really make the argument harder, because I don't think Callisto was accusing a king at that point. Was he a king or was he a god yet? So his thing has raised, his status has raised.
I'll briefly go to Lynn before I go to Briony.
Yeah, that's a great point. That when he was just a general, and his descent was theoretically unknown, he needed to use brute force. And now that he's King Jupiter, he gets to use bribery and seduction. So that's a really nice observation. That his tactics have changed as his social power has grown.
And someone who doesn't actually have that much in the way of agency, because they are locked in the tower by their father, and so there's whole questions there. Briony.
I just thought it was really interesting that they've kind of ended with this little speech from the clown, and possibly the worst joke yet that he's tried to make about the cloak and the nap. That's dreadful. Is that enough to distract from what's just happened and what's still happening inside the curtained bed? I don't think so. But
well, that's the thing. I don't think it's supposed to distract per se. It might be just there for counterpoint, actually, to make the scene land in. So you're thinking about the two things at the same time. It's structurally there. No real spoilers here to say that the bed they basically come back on again after some time has passed. So the clown is there to denote time passing. But yeah, what the clown does in terms of mood, do we think the clown actually changes the atmosphere in the room? I don't think they do. But opinions may vary. Eric, then Lynn.
I was going to make the point that the four tapers and the whole the setup basically just the visual setup just reminded me of the Passion Plays and the whole burial of Christ with the soldiers at the four sides, and then obviously the resurrection, because he does say, "I'll bring her onto a new life," and it's yeah, totally post-rape victim, yes.
Lynn.
Kind of changing the subject a little here, one thing I was struck by is the fact that Jupiter enters in his royal robes and crown. I mean, he could enter in his nightshirt, but he doesn't. So they have to make a deal of him getting unready, getting disrobed. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm not really sure what to make of that. I mean, we can't really say anything about intense, but the effect might be to sort of make this even more drawn out, and it strikes me as it's kind of taking a while to get around to what this sequence of scenes is culminating in. Anyway, scene after scene after scene of we are going to seduce / assault Danae, and this makes it sort of even more protracted, I guess. But that's just something I was striking, that he doesn't enter ready to do the deed. He's all in his royal robes.
Yes, there's a striptease going on. That he is during Danae's speech, and and she keeps going. Oh, he's not quite finished yet. He's not quite finished yet. He makes I'm ready still. Well, I'll even wink and then do what you will. So there's all sorts of questions about what's going on in that sequence. Aliki.
Yeah, it occurred to me as Lynn was saying that, is this meant to be titillating?
Mm.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, this is that gap here. That I think this is one of the biggest gaps that we've had between, presumed audience expectation of the period and what we're getting from it now. I don't think we're reading it in the light of what is probably the intent. But we should always be very careful about making statements like that, because you never actually know.
No.
But it certainly feels like there is a period gap here. I'll go to Helen, then Eric.
Yeah, if we're thinking about how this might be done on an early modern stage, getting yourself undressed from something fairly grand was a protracted affair, because there were no zips or Velcro. It was a question of either struggling out of something which hung from the shoulders or a belt, or it was a question of points and ties which had to be untied. It did take some considerable time, which is why all these Tudor films and television programs are always so very ridiculous, because people seem to get themselves into bed very fast indeed.
Well, there is a cheat hidden in the Danae's line there. Before you come to get bed, the curtains draw. So it could be actually that she's popping her head round the curtains as he's that he is not visually being seen at this moment. If they're in the bed, they've drawn the curtains, and that's more a description of something that you're not seeing. That all he's really done is just taken his cloak off, and he's actually already starting on his quick change to get into his nightgown for the next scene. So there might be a cheat in there to help make that happen. Eric was next, then Dan.
I was going to say that sort of the whole entering with the crown and imperial robes would have just also been the sort of wow factor. Like, okay, not just the fear, but also the sort of trying to impress her with his, blind her with, his wealth and status and all that stuff. So like, it's basically like going back to what Rachael and Lynn were saying about status, in terms of like who has the power in the scene, but also like that in terms of the dynamics, but also who has the power in terms of status. Like, he's a king and she's a trapped princess, basically.
Dan.
Just to go off of Helen's point, observation, this is one of those perfect examples of why you would have a clown come in there and improvise a little bit to give some time for the undressing to be done, which is we've seen in many other plays.
Yep. Just simply the clown can vamp. There's a cough from off stage. Keep going. I haven't got my Troos off. So yes, that makes sense. Anyway, we will complete the act so that we've got a bit more context. But gathering our sense of the play as it goes in real time. Act 4, Scene 5. Enter Jupiter and Danae in her nightgown.
Alas, my lord, I never loved till now, and will you leave me?
Beauteous queen, I must, but thus conditioned to return again with a strong army to redeem you hence, in spite of Argos and Acrisius, that dooms you to this bondage.
Then farewell, no sooner meet but part. Remember me, for you, great prince, I never shall forget. I fear you have left too sure a token with me of your remembrance.
Danae, be it a son, it shall be ours when we have Argos won.
But should you fail?
I sooner should forget my name, my state, than fail to pay this debt. The day star gins to appear, the Beldam stir, ready to unlock the gate. Fair queen, adieu.
All men prove false if Jove be found untrue.
Exit Danae.
My man?
Enter the clown.
My lord?
Some cloud to cover me. Throw over my shoulders some shadows for this state. The crones are up, and wait to imprison us. Nay, quickly, fellow.
Here, my lord. Cast your old cloak about you.
Enter the four Beldams in haste.
Where be these peddlers? Nay, quickly, for heaven's sake, the gate is open. Nay, when? Farewell, my honest lords, and do our humble duties to the great King Jupiter.
King Jupiter shall know your gratitude. Farewell.
Nay, when I say farewell, farewell.
Farewell, good Minivers.
And they exit diverse ways. Enter Homer.
Fair Danae doth his richest jewel wear, that son of whom the oracle foretold, which cost both mother and the grandsire dear, whose fortunes farther leisure shall unfold. Think Jupiter returned to Crete in haste, to levy arms for Danae's free release, but hindered till the time be fully past, for Saturn once more will disturb his peace.
There's a dumb show. Enter King Troos and Ganymede with attendants. To him Saturn, who makes suit for aid, shows the king his models, his inventions, his several metals, at the strangeness of which King Troos is moved, calls for drum and colours, and marches with Saturn.
The exiled Saturn by King Troos is aided, Troos that gave Troy her name and reigned as king, Crete by the help of Ganymedes invaded, even at that time when Jove should succours bring to rescue Danae, and that warlike power must now his native territories guard, which should have brought her from the brazen tower, for to that end his forces were prepared. We grow now towards our port and wished bay, gentles your love, and Homer cannot stray.
Exit Homer, and that closes the act, setting up the next act, which is the return of Saturn with some new allies. We get this sort of conclusion of Danae and Jupiter after the fact. Danae is they're very clear. It's that godly potency thing here is definitely pregnant already. They know. And then the Beldams, who basically come in when they see Jupiter with his cloak on, goes, "Oh my God, it's Jupiter! Bye." There's no ring the bell, bring the king in business at all going on. Thoughts about the response following the event, as it were. Helen.
Sorry, I was just going to say I don't think they do recognise him as Jupiter. He has the old peddler's cloak on him. They're saying, send our best to Jupiter for these jewels, which they are presumably still dripping with.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I was completely on a different page there.
Because I think if they'd recognised him, there would have been a lot more...
Cast your old cloak about you, yes, because he's just supposed to be kipping somewhere in a corner, isn't he? Yes, that's what they think. He's just on a park bench somewhere.
Can I have a duck noise, please, from somebody?
You can have a duck noise. Why? Do you want one?
Cast your old cloak.
Yeah, it's in the script.
Oh, we may as well do a duck quack for "We Are Amazed."
Yeah.
Sorry.
Commonplaces are fine. Alan, then Aliki.
Yeah, I can see the Beldams turning up somewhat dishabille, but covered in bling. Because they haven't got rid of the jewels, but they ain't done the makeup.
Aliki and then Rachael. Oh no, Aliki. Rachael.
The moment there's something about this that reminds me of Scarlett O'Hara. Vivian Leigh. Because there is a scene where what is the guy's name that she's married to? Is it like Red or something?
Rhett Butler.
Yeah, that it's that it's like that scene after he's like assaulted her and he leaves, that she acts like, oh, nothing's wrong. I don't know, it reminds me of that, but I think the production could play it, as a consensual, because there is that ambiguity in the text that they could play it for the consensuality or they could play it without consensuality. I think if it was played with consensuality, there's still it's still super creepy because it's like there's so much similarity to that scene with Callisto that it's like, is this semi-planned? Is this some sort of, thing with him, like some sort of serial killer like thing with him, pathology going on?
I think the logic of the play is that this, or from the playwright's point of view, is that that this is consensual. That just doesn't mean it isn't incredibly problematic from our perspective, and but that seems to be where the playwright has structured this scene to be doing. It's a lot more complicated than that. But that does seem to be where the shape of the act has been going, because it's the whole of this act has been quite light with tone. It's just loaded with terms and language and stuff that we are much more aware of than perhaps they were at the time, and have better facilities for discussing. Lynn, then Helen.
Yeah, another thing that strikes me is how quick the pivot from the seduction sequence back to the political and military power struggle is. I mean, that seems so abrupt. So he's going to go get Danae out of the tower. Oh, but then Saturn just shows up again, and then we're going to do that story. It just feels really, sudden. And maybe there's no way for that not to be the case, but it's kind of disorienting that now we're going to talk about Saturn. Oh, okay.
Yeah, each act is ticking a box. It's like, and we do this myth here, that myth's done. Move on to the next one before we've forgotten who Saturn was, and that kind of structure. Yeah, Helen.
It strikes me that the honourable thing to do would be to rescue the princess first, get her pregnant second. And that would have been the correct order of things. Because by doing it the other way round, he lays himself open to being distracted.
Well, I'd say the problem with this whole scenario is ultimately Danae doesn't have any agency or fundamental controls over this scene. It seems to go perfectly well and seems to be fine. But if it didn't go fine, the ending would, the Jupiter would clearly has the power in this situation. That's the big problem. That's the big flashing light, along with all the other flashing lights that are flashing. It's very bright and red in my mind at the moment. Eric.
I was going to say that the Oracle is basically the same one. Essentially, it's like sort of the Saturn's Oracle was basically his son is going to kill him. Like basically a descendant is going to kill him, and then sort of a male child is going to kill him. And then Acrisius gets the same one, tries to prevent it, and of course is thwarted by the same son that was meant to be murdered in the first act, which is we kind of wish that he would have been murdered. But I mean, yeah.
Right, we need to go into Act 5, a very different universe, hopefully. Act 5, Scene 1, enter Neptune and Pluto.
Whence are these warlike preparations made by the king our brother?
'Tis given out to conquer Argos, but my sister, Juno, suspects some amorous purpose in the king.
And blame her not, the fair Europa's rape brought from Agenor and the Cadmean rape. Io, the daughter of old Inachus, deflowered by him, the lovely Semele, fair leader, daughter of King Tyndarus, and many more may breed a just suspect. Nor hath he spared fair Ceres, queen of grain, who bare to him the bright Proserpina. Such scrapes may breed just fears, and what knows she but these are to surprise fair Danae?
Sound. Enter Jupiter Archas with drum and soldiers.
Arm, royal brothers. Crete's too small an isle to comprehend our greatness. We must add Argos and Greece to our dominions, and all the petty kingdoms of the earth shall pay their homage unto Saturn's son. This day we'll take muster of our forces and forward make for Argos.
All Arcadia assembles to this purpose.
Then set on. The eagle in our ensign will display. Jove and his fortunes guide us in our way.
Enter King Melliseus.
Whether intends the king this warlike march?
For Argos and Acrisius.
Rather guard your native confines. See upon your coast, Saturn with 30,000 Trojans landed, and in his aid King Troos and Ganymede.
In never worse time could the tyrant come than now, to break my faith with Danae. Oh, beauteous love, I fear Acrisius' ire will with severest censure chastise thee, and thou wilt deem me faithless and unkind for promise breach. But what we must, we must. Come, valiant lords, I'll first our own defend, ere against foreign climes our arm extend.
Sound. Enter with drum and colours King Troos, Saturn, Ganymede with other lords in attendance.
Degenerate boys, base bastards, not my sons. Behold, the devil we threatened in your cradles, we come to give you now. See here, King Troos, in pity of deposed Saturn's wrongs, is come in person to chastise your pride, and be the heavens' relentless justicer.
Not against Saturn as a father we, but as a murderer. List our opposite hands. Nature and heaven give us this privilege to guard our lives against tyrants and invaders that claim we, as we are men, we would but live, then take not from us what you cannot give.
Where hath not Saturn's fame abroad been spread? For many uses he hath given to men, as navigation, tillage, archery, weapons, and gold. Yet you, for all these uses, deprive him of his kingdom.
We but save our innocent bodies from the abortive grave.
We are his sons, let Saturn be content to let us keep what heaven and nature lent.
Those filial duties you so much forget, we come to teach you. Royal kings, to arms, give Ganymede the onset of this battle, that, being a son, knows how to lecture them and chastise their transgressions.
Ganymede, it shall be so. Pour out your spleen and rage on our proud issue. Let the thirsty soil of barren Crete quaff their degenerate bloods and surfeit in their sins. All Saturn's hopes and fortunes are engaged upon this day. It is our last, and all, be it our endeavour to win it for aye, or else to lose it for ever.
Alarum, the battles join. The Trojans are repulsed. Yes, we get some Trojans today. You get that sense of the world is starting to expand. That I wonder where the general plot might start drifting later on in the sequence. And yes, suddenly it all feels so much more comfortable when we're just killing people. It's just so much easier to deal with. And you're just standing there going, yeah, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough in the approved battle sense. Yeah, and especially when we start the scene with this sort of awkward recap of all the horrors that these plays are hopefully not going to do any more work on. It's like, I'm sort of hoping that, was that a big line drawn in the sand? Please let that be a line drawn in the sand that we can get on and do other things later on. Like just getting on with killing people, because, that's really coping with that easier. So yeah, Saturn's back, and I think Pluto, has a point about Saturn, about the whole, we're not keen on Saturn trying to murder us. Thoughts in the room? Anyone want to throw anything in? People in the chat are making Trojan jokes. Anyone got anything more than that to play with? Eric.
Well, they use the same arguments as Danae did with Acrisius, where my son is gonna live and sort of bury you because you're his grandfather and you're gonna be old and dead. The natural order is gonna be upset if you try to kill your grandson and so on and so forth.
Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I was going to say. Maybe the takeaway of this whole narrative is that it's futile to fight the natural order of things. People die, the patriarchs die and their sons take over. That's how that has to be. And there's just a lot of trouble when you try to derail that process. But the other thing I was going to flag up, and I'm not sure that this is significant at all. So we have Trojans or future Trojans here, and Troos, the founder of Troy. And didn't the English kind of identify with Troy? So
we're Trojans.
These would be the good guys.
We've literally did last night the true Trojans. In theory, according to Geoffrey of Monmouth, we are all descended from escapees from Troy after the fall. Brutus was a Trojan, first king of the Britons. Then that's history. That's true because Geoffrey of Monmouth told us so. Yes, Helen.
And we're very close to the Trojan War because our leader lays 2 eggs, and out of one of them is born Helen of Sparta, later of Troy, and her sister Clytemnestra. The other one's Castor and Pollux, but we needn't worry about them.
Yeah. Yes, of which I'm sure we'll hear about more in a future session. Let us rejoin. Battle has occurred. Act 5, Scene 2, enter Troos and Saturn.
Our Trojans are repulsed. Where's Ganymede?
Amidst the throng of weapons acting wonders. Twice did I call aloud to have him fly, and twice he swore he had vowed this day to die.
Let's make up to his rescue.
Tush, 'tis vain. To seek to save him we shall lose ourselves. The day is lost, and Ganymede lost too, without divine assistance. Hie, my lord, unto your ships. No safety lives aland. Even to the ocean's margin we're pushed. Then save yourselves by sea.
Crete, thou hast won my 30,000 soldiers and my son. Come, let's to the sea.
And exit King Troos.
To sea must Saturn too, to whom all good stars still are opposite. My crown I first bought with my infant's blood, not long enjoyed till Titan wrested it, repurchased and re-lost by Jupiter. These horrid mischiefs that have crowned our brows have bred in us such strange distemperature that we are grown dejected and forlorn. Our blood is changed to ink, our hairs to quills, our eyes half buried in our quetchy plots. Consumptions and cold agues have devoured and eat up all our flesh, leaving behind naught but the image of despair and death. And Saturn shall to after ages be that star that shall infuse dull melancholy. To Italy I'll fly, and there abide, till divine powers may place above provide.
And exit Saturn. Act 5, Scene 3 will run straight on. Alarum, enter Ganymede, compassed in with soldiers. To them Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, Archas, Melliseus.
Yield, noble Trojan. There's not in the field one of thy nation lifts a hand to save thee.
Why, that's my honour. When alone I stand 'gainst thee and all the forces of thy land.
I love thy valour and would woo thy friendship. Go freely where thou wilt, and
Why, that's
ransomless.
no gift. I am no prisoner, and therefore owe no ransom. Having breath, no, I have vowed to yield to none save death.
I wish thee nobly, Trojan. Since favour can ascertain thy love, I'll try conclusions, and see if I can purchase it with
Now
blows.
speak'st thou like the noblest of my foes.
Stand all apart, and princes, gird
I
us
love them
round.
best whose blows can loudest sound.
Alarum, they fight, and losing their weapons, embrace.
I have thee, and
Not
will
as a
keep
prisoner.
thee. Prisoner to my love, else thou art free. My bosom friend, for so I
I am
honour
conquered
thee.
both by arms and courtesy.
Sorry. The day is ours. Troos and King Saturn's fled, and Jupiter remains sole conqueror.
Peace, with her golden wings, hover o'er Crete, frighting hence discord and remorseless war. Will Jupiter make up for Argos now?
Winter draws on. The seas are navigable to transport an army. There tends without a lord of Argos.
Bring him to our presence.
Enter a Lord of Argos.
How stands it with the beautiful Danae?
As one distressed by fate and miserable of King Acrisius and his fort of brass, Danae's enclosure and her Beldam guard, who hath not heard? Yet through these brazen walls love hath broke in, and made the maid a mother of a fair son, which when Acrisius heard, her female guard unto the fire he dooms. His daughter and the infant prince, her son, he puts into a mastless boat to sea, to prove the rigor of the stormy waves.
Acrisius, Argos, and the world shall know Jove has been wronged in this. Her father fortunes? Canst
I
thou
can.
relate?
As far as Naples, the friendly wind her mastless boat transports, there succored by a courteous fisherman, she's first relieved, and after that presented to King Pelenus, who at this time reigns, who ravished with her beauty crowns her queen and decks her with the imperial robes of state.
What we have scanted is supplied by fate. Here then cease arms, and now court amorous peace, with solemn triumphs. And, dear Ganymede, be henceforth called the friend of Jupiter. And if the fates hereafter crown our brows with divine honours, as we hope they shall, we'll style thee by the name of cup-bearer, to fill us heavenly nectar, as fair Hebe shall do the like to Juno, our bright queen. Here end the pride of our mortality, opinion that makes gods must style us higher. The next you see us, we in state must shine, eternalized with honours more divine.
And a exit. We'll pause before we go to Homer's conclusion. So we're sort of getting a wrapping up of this particular thing. The Trojans are repulsed. Saturn has decided to slink away, being cheerful. Cheerful old Saturn there. Yeah. Not very happy. Quite sad. The image of despair and death. So that's Saturn's fate there. Meanwhile, we have relative success from Jupiter, and then news of what happened in Act 4, which bit sad for the Beldames there. Just didn't end well for them. Comedy characters, basically. Comedy characters.
They said, oops, we'll get burned alive if we're not careful. Gosh, look at the jewelry.
Yeah, and lo, they got burnt alive. So, yeah, nice. They won't do that again.
Who got the bling?
I assume the king did. I think the king always gets the bling. Cast into a mastless boat to sea. That's a story that turns up several times in different places as well. Thoughts on the room before we get Homer's final conclusions. Lynn.
I know I tend to kind of micro focus, so this is just me. So sorry. But I'm struck by the word ravished in the Argos Lord's line that King Pelenus was ravished with her beauty and crown, made her his queen. Because the word rape was a noun, but never a verb in this period. The verb for that was ravish. So what this word is doing is really interesting. Is it kind of trivializing what happened to Danae? Because she was ravished, and then her beauty ravished a king and got her elevated to the position of queen. But it's just sort of a return of that imagery of sexual assault in the very language of that story.
Aliki.
That is interesting, and I quite like that. All that Jupiter has learned from his adventure with Callisto and Archas is you really ought to pay child support. And he's a bit relieved. At least I don't have to pay child support this time. They're taken care of.
And also in this scene, we've got Ganymede and Jupiter sort of broing off, as it were. They have a fight, and now they're best buds. Kinda. Eric.
Well, it is a very Spanish tragedy, isn't it? Kind of, sort of, and Hieronymo, the first part of Hieronymo, where you've got all that stuff about sort of, if we weren't, enemies, we'd be best friends, kind of thing. Yeah. So, but otherwise, it does seem to me just an excuse for another fight. We had this earlier. I think I'm getting this confused with a different play. That we have a massive fight and then we have a one-to-one sword fight immediately afterwards. So it's there's almost a pattern emerging here structurally. Is that we had the mid-play excitement of a big battle sword fight, and now we close the play, big battle sword fight. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't state swords. It could have, don't know what weapons they were actually using. Could have been all sorts of things. Okay, we have the closing oration by Homer, and I'll ask Dan, could you read the dumb shows that punctuate it, please?
1 second, because I was just scrolling to another page there. So not Homer though, just the dumb show.
Not Homer. You read the dumb shows in between Homer.
Right. Okay.
Of Danae, Perseus was that night begot. Perseus that fought with the Gorgonian shield, whose fortunes to pursue time suffers not. For that we have prepared an ampler field. Likewise, how Jove with fair Alcmena lay, of Hercules and of his famous deeds, how Pluto did fair Proserpine betray. Of these my muse, now travailed, next proceeds. Yet to keep promise ere we farther wade, the ground of ancient poems you shall see, and how these firstborn mortal gods were made, by virtue of divinest poesy. The fates to whom the heathens yield all power, whose dooms are writ in marble to endure, have summoned Saturn's 3 sons to their tower, to them the 3 dominions to assure, of heaven, of sea, of hell. How these are scanned, let none decide, but such as understand.
Sound, a dumb show. Enter the 3 fatal sisters with a rock and a thread and a pair of shears, bringing in a globe in which they put 3 lots. Jupiter draws heaven, at which Iris descends and presents him with his eagle, crown, and scepter, and his thunderbolt. Jupiter first ascends upon the eagle, and after him Ganymede.
To Jupiter doth high Olympus fall, who thunder and the triforked lightning bears. Dreaded of all the rest in general, he on a princely eagle mounts the spheres.
Sound. Neptune draws the sea, is mounted upon a seahorse. A robe and trident with a crown are given him by the fates.
Neptune is made the lord of all the seas, his mace a trident and his habit blue. He can make tempests and the waves appease, and unto him the seamen are still true.
Sound, thunder and tempest. Enter at 4 several corners, the 4 winds. Neptune riseth disturbed. The fates bring the 4 winds in a chain and present them to Aeolus as their king.
And for the winds, these brothers that still war, should not disturb the empire, the 3 fates bring them to Aeolus, chained as they are, to be enclosed in caves with brazen gates.
Sound, Pluto draws hell. The fates put upon him a burning robe and present him with a mace and burning crown.
Pluto's made emperor of the ghosts below, where with his black guard he in darkness reigns, commanding hell where Styx and Lethe flow, and murderers are hanged in burning chains. But leaving these to your judicial spirits, I must appeal, and to your wonted grace, to know from you what eyeless Homer merits, whom you have power to banish from this place. But if you send me hence unchecked with fear, once more I'll dare upon this stage to appear.
And exit. We're getting... It's weird, because Heywood won't write any civic pageantry for another 20-odd years. But it's full of stuff, which is, feels like they've just phoned up Christmas and said, hi, no, we need a seahorse, and we need an eagle. Do you have anything in stock? Oh, fabulous. Could you deliver on Thursday? That would be great. Jupiter ascending upon the eagle. Neptune on a seahorse, and also some strange interpretive dance goes on with the winds. I'm not quite sure how that all works. And Pluto gets hell. That's just a burning robe. That sounds safe. I'm sure it's just shiny, but I just quite like the idea of he's just wearing an asbestos cloak. Eric.
It's about as safe as the whole, zeal for shooting fireworks out of his head in one of the pageants.
Just burn the pageant wagon down with a massive firework flame charge. Yeah.
I'm guessing he is using a lot of the sort of props from the pageants as well. It seems like that he has access to that.
Well, say he's not involved with pageantry for 20 years. I mean, it's far in his future. That's not to say there aren't theatrical connections, but that's an interesting crossover because he's that's going on here. It's interesting. Aliki.
It seems like Homer is committing the cardinal sin of the modern showrunner and basically just setting up season 2 here.
Yep. He has pretty much explained quite a few things that will occur next time, for good and ill. The myth selection for season 2 is... hang on, we're just going to draw out the hat. There we go. Lynn.
Well, I wasn't thinking about pageantry because it's a genre I'm not that familiar with. I was thinking that this end got very court masky, with very spectacular and amazing props and costumes. So that was what I was thinking of, more of the court mask genre. I wonder if that's kind of what this look is as well.
Well, there's all sorts of questions that actually now we're nudging our way into the 17th century of the overlap between all of these in terms of who's producing it, who's got access to what, and how all that overlaps. It's a really good point, especially earlier actually with the stuff to do with in the bed scene with tapers around the bed as well, indications of for an indoor performance that you've got options of lighting as opposed to just using torches to indicate that it's night, even though it's not actually having a lighting effect at all. So there's all sorts of interesting questions about that. Other thoughts on this closing, Eric?
Well, it's not entirely on the closing part, but it was just on the report of the Argos Lord, where you've got that sort of. It just felt a bit like, oh look, she's a virgin and she has a baby, and with the whole like possible burial of Christ imagery there, I was like, okay, I know it's not related, but it's just an interesting choice.
Okay, Alan.
I think actually, having read Jupiter in 2 of the 3 sessions we've done, I think the answer to his character is he lives eternally in the present, with no thought of what's happened in the past and with no thought of any potential future consequences. And I can think of some current era political figures who operate in very much the same way.
Yes, it's not hard to figure out his motivations in that sense. And as one of the few characters who continues throughout the play, though on the whole the play has danced around between various figures and how everything holds together. We are getting Lynn.
Oh, I was just going to flag up that once more Homer is claiming to have basically created all of this. He's that these firstborn mortal gods were made by virtue of divinest poesy. It's the poetry that turns them from men to gods. It's similar to what he was Homer said in his introduction, that basically I did this. I created this.
Yeah, I made this, says Homer, and yeah, which it's say they were talking about the implications of that the other day. That actually that doesn't help in terms of how we present this today, because of course it's just becomes this is your story, is it, Homer? Nice. Whereas if these are the myths and what do I do with them, that's a slightly different kettle of fish. So yeah, we've come to the end of the Golden Age, the first of this sequence, and it's time to sort of. We've really not been talking about what the play's been doing overall at the end of these sessions, because we really don't quite know, and I'm not sure if we still know what quite to make of this, and where we go from here in terms of this text, especially where we go also when we go to the next text, as well as the question of returning to this text. So it's actually time for final thoughts to see where we are, and what can we say. I'll go to Eric first. Do you have any final thoughts?
Traumatized. I don't know. There's a part of me going, how would you like? There are a lot of plays that are like this that are staged today, not necessarily in like this level of sort of difficulty in terms of like, is it consensual? Is it not consensual? Like that's the director's choice as well. But like, I think it's kind of an interesting one if you consider it in the context of plays like we've been talking about in the chat, or the films, but then I don't know, there's a part of going, you probably just shouldn't put it on. It's like people will just want to kill Jupiter afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do when your central character is Jupiter, or by the end of the play your central character is Jupiter? Where do you go with this? The world needs a play doing this kind of business, like it needs a hole in the head, and yeah, I genuinely don't know the answer on this one. I'm struggling. Aliki, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, my tentative answer to the question of what is the play doing is something we mentioned before. I think it's doing Greek Myths 101, and it doesn't really care whether they're rounded characters or we like what they do. It's just like, well, this is the mythology, and I'll try and put it in terms you can understand, which are not terms we understand particularly well.
Tamara, you missed the first session, but you've been playing catch up. Any final thoughts?
I mean, I have the same problem with this play as I do with Greek mythology as a whole, which is Jupiter. I think there is something about this play that makes me think there is value in this, but I can't pinpoint it yet. I wouldn't put it on personally, but there is some value to this. I also keep thinking about the coercion of Danae and how it's even got us discussing consent, because to me it's a situation where she's incapable of giving full consent. So it's one of those situations that I find myself I see it a lot when I watch a film or when I watch TV shows, where I see a relationship and I go, that's not entirely unproblematic. Why is this being romanticized again? So again, from that perspective, there is something interesting about this play. From just me disliking Greek myths and being a huge advocate of equally problematic in other ways Norse myths. I'm waffling now, but yeah, I think as a woman and a feminist, I'm just going to dislike Greek mythology in that sense, because it makes me want to kill the king of the gods.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how the sequence ends. Maybe that's what happens to Jupiter, but I'm going to say that to go through 5 plays, even if that does happen, would be hard work. Dan, you've only come in for this session. You've just sort of got a taster. Do you have anything to chuck in at this stage?
At this stage, I'll agree with Aliki that I do think that Heywood is not, I guess, necessarily judging the characters. He's just presenting it out there for us. And I think he even says that in the epistle to the reader that he added in after it had already been going to print, saying neither to approve it is tasteful to every palate. There, he obviously saw value in presenting this story, and then continued to find value in it because he keeps going back to the well and doing these sequels to it. And then even later conflating, as we'll see, conflating this with another play, his next one, Silver Age. So I'm happy to just follow along with the story and not necessarily say, well, I mean, obviously it's very disturbing what happens in these plays, but that's what the myth is. So what should we do? Sanitize it? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the presentational mode? And for an audience which is presented with quite contrasting scenes, quite contrasting acts that are doing very different things each time. And these snapshots were, what are they for? What work are they doing for us as well as for them? Lynn, any final thoughts?
A couple of slightly separate responses. I am not sure I can totally buy into, like, these are the stories and where I'm just telling you this and I don't expect you don't necessarily need to like it or approve it. I really feel like what this text is doing is trying to eroticize resistance. And I'm not okay with that. So it's like the more she says no, the more you want. That's just like enough of that. Yeah, we've had that narrative for too long and it's super toxic. No. Okay. But kind of separate from that, I think that the framing of Homer basically created the gods. He created this. Like the poet is the poet as creator. The poet is the, all of this comes out of the mind. That's actually really interesting to me, partly because it kind of runs parallel to now what we now think of as the way that myths and history might very well work. There are many people who believe that the Turkish city of Hisarlik is the real Troy. And there was really a war there. It was probably over shipping rights in the Dardanelles and not over Helen, but there was really a small civilization was destroyed. And with repetition, the story becomes this giant myth that's sort of foundational to European culture. And so it's the poetry that makes men gods is an interesting parallel to that. I don't think Heywood could have known that, but it's just, but I just think that's really fascinating, that it's the storytelling that elevates the ordinary to the extraordinary.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I must admit, I have the same issue with this as I do with the mystery plays, or the morality plays, all of the ones that are based on sort of the established mythic structures, that you can't actually do them anything other than as a period piece. This is what was written at a particular time in history, and it reflected views that were about at that time. They may not have been held by the majority, but they were held by a significant minority. And I think to present them as anything other than as a historical artifact of the early Jacobean period is a mistake.
Rachael, any final thoughts?
To what Lynn said as the poet as God, in for like painters and sculptors, there's one of Dürer, where it was like commissioned by the German government, literally in the year 1500, where it was a whole movement where artists were trying to, quote this imagery of the like religious imagery of Jesus to equate themselves with gods. So I think Homer saying he created this, it could be the degradation of these gods that weren't Christian gods and leveling them down to mortals, or it could be the elevation of artistry, the two different perspectives, I guess, that you could have on that. Also, I'm kind of dumbfounded with what to say about this play. It just kind of is what it is, and it's not a thing that I think has carried over into our our contemporary perspective, that maybe it could be a Law and Order SVU episode, but that I don't know, it's just something of the period. I agree that it's a period piece.
Briony, any final thoughts? People are allowed not to have them, by the way. You don't have to have, if it's been said, you can just move on. I'll briefly go to Eric then. I
was just going to say, this is probably a bit random, I guess, but anyway, if you present something as a period piece, doesn't it just enforce the idea that those ideals are dead and gone, whereas kind of they're in many places and in many situations we still see them? And I don't know, that's just a philosophical idea to throw out there.
Yes, well, yeah. What is the function of putting the performance on full stop, and then how you're framing that performance, and whether the intention there justifies what the audience might have to watch, regardless of intent in that sense. Valentina, you've only been here for this session. Welcome. Any final thoughts?
Well, I don't think I've seen enough, but I mean, the two things that come to mind is like we still study the Greek myths, so there might be a discussion there that somebody will want to take up. But at the same time, I think if you have to put it on, like whatever you do, don't call it the Golden Age. Don't make it sound desirable. That just that's just odd.
We've had that discussion last time about, what do we mean by Golden Age? What's the play meaning by Golden Age? What did people before that mean? And what's it coming across today? Because it came across as just ironic. I mean, there is a sense earlier that Saturn's sort of showing his 5-year plan. And look, of all these wonderful things I've made. And we got a bit of that in the Dumb Show. But yeah, and that it all goes horribly wrong. But yeah, there are other conflicting things in there, and you'd need to make that really clear. Yeah, Dan.
I have no guesses as to why when Heywood later conflated this play with Silver Age, it was called Callisto or the Escapes of Jupiter rather than Golden Age and Silver Age. So just thought I'd throw that in there, that 12 years or 13 years later, Heywood himself decided to change the title in a sense.
And yes, and it'd be interesting to see what that construction is, but that might not be for a long time. Helen, you've helped wrangle the text to get it in place, as with some assistance from Eric and actually Aliki, of which I was consulted on some elements of some of these texts, I think. But anyway, I'll go to you, Helen, for any final thoughts at this stage in our journey.
Yes, it has to be at this stage because, I mean, I see this as the pilot episode. And the pilot episodes very frequently have weak elements and have to be completely recast and reshot. I think it's very important if we were doing this that we actually try and find, difficult way of putting it, humanity in these godlike people. We've got to give them motivations. They're not just coming on saying, I am Jupiter, I haven't a clue who my parents were, but I feel I'm really, really great. Also, every time a woman goes past me, I chase her. I mean, I think we've got to actually get into them something that we recognize, something that we relate to. I don't think, in fact, that Heywood makes Jupiter particularly attractive, even in his own times. I mean, certainly the Ganymede business would not have been generally approved. And to be honest, I don't think male promiscuity was, in early modern times, a well-regarded thing. I think the idea of this being Greek Myths 101 is absolutely correct. I mean, it is, even for those who know their Greek myths, it's quite useful to have them put into a narrative that is actually going somewhere. And although it may not seem as if this narrative is going somewhere, I can assure you it is.
We might have a framing device here of educational, that it starts and ends with a seminar, each act, where Homer goes out to the class for discussion and questions. I mean, that's been one of the running themes actually here, of where, especially in the chat, less so in the actual out loud, of just going, sorry, what's happening with this myth now? And the variations of what the various myths are like as well, because there are variations in myths. There is no sort of one, there isn't a central, absolute, defined story. There are overlapping, slightly different versions of stories. And then also we've got a layer here of Heywood turning it into a play. And for that matter, then returning it into another play. So there's something there that may be of value. Certainly in terms of, we've got a lot of plays to do, and touching upon this one is feeling much more about education than at the moment it is about producing drama. That's kind of where I'm planting my flag in this one. It may be as the story progresses further down the line that we move into narratives that are much easier to digest. But let's not burn that bridge till we get to it. Dan?
I do think that Helen is on to, I guess, the key, the core point of all plays, really, which is to find a humanity in all of the characters. And that obviously humanity is messy, and I don't think we should be trying to say, well, this is I can't listen to this because it's not me, or it's too far away from what I believe or whatever. It's like, sorry, this is what a lot of people either believe or have done or have observed. And what's the point in having a drama if you're not going to have that kind of conflict in it? So that's where I stand.
Other points? I think we've gone around the room once. Eric.
More a question than a point. Because for sort of word nerds, I guess. Because I remember reading somewhere that it's like during the 15th and 16th century, and pre that basically, the meaning of rape was basically kidnap. So kidnapping. So I don't know if like at this point, Heywood was also messing around with the meaning. I don't know.
Yes, there is a complexity with it, depending on the context in which it's used. Helen probably knows more on this than I do.
Yeah, it's true. Rape was was theft.
Abduction. Yeah.
Not only abduction, it was also theft. I mean, there's the rape of the lock. If you want a literary.
Yeah. You hear the word ravishment and ravishing a lot in this period to mean what we now call rape. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But I mean, rape fundamentally was the taking away, rather than the actual act of intercourse without consent.
Any other thoughts or queries or points or questions to throw in before we close the session? He said, casting about for something slightly more cheerful to talk about to close on someone throw me a crumb. No, it's not going to happen. Valentina.
The dumb show at the end is fantastic. Will make for a great fringe show. Edinburgh show. It'll be fine.
Yeah, there are actually lots of bits in this where the stagecraft is really open for the battle scene that we dealt with yesterday. Also had some really exciting bits. The battle scenes are fine. I'm fine with the battle scenes. If we could quietly excise elements, it would be quite exciting. So yes, that's the closing point. I know, Helen, I'm just grasping at straws. Let me move on. And on that note, thanks to all the wonderful readers. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Arcadia, assemble.